Deliberate implosion of financial system being engineered to kickstart new financial system. A bigger than Lehman Brothers collapse of the financial system is being engineered in order to make way for a new financial system, Asian secret society sources say. Recent trends in financial markets, notably a stock market bubble of biblical proportions, back up these assertions. Many financial veterans would tell you that when financial markets fight against reality, reality always wins in the end. This means stock prices will fall by 90% or more. However, in a sign the financial war is not yet over, European royals disagree, saying, all of the world's investment banks have begun to migrate away from the old system. So it's just a matter of time before it's seamlessly or frictionlessly just march from the old to the new. This may work for payment system, ATMs and credit cards, but not for the Western system of Babylonian debt slavery as a whole. The system has resulted in the top 1% owning 53.2% of all stocks and mutual funds. And if you add in the next 9%, the rich control 93.2%, leaving the remaining of 90%, which is 6.8%. Further proof that this is just a system of debt slavery comes from the fact the bottom of 90% of the people own 72.4% of the debt. The stock market, controlled and owned by the super rich and their high-level servants, has become fraudulent and parasitical and is actually sucking money out of the real economy. This makes a collapse mathematically inevitable. Let's take a look at some more numbers to prove this. From January to October of this year worldwide, $339 billion has been put into bonds and $208 billion has been taken out of stocks. And yet, the stock market keeps hitting record highs. That's because since 2009, institutional investors and households have taken $1.9 trillion out the stock market, while corporations using private central bank funding monkey have brought $3.6 trillion of their own shares. Plus, according to the Wall Street Journal, 97% of listed companies are not using generally accepted accounting principles in releasing their profits, meaning basically they are cooking their books. Coca-Cola is a good case study. If we just go back to a few years to 2010, Coca-Cola's annual revenue was $35 billion. By 2018, the company's annual revenue had fallen to less than $32 billion. In 2010, Coca-Cola generated $5.06 in profit earnings per share. In 2018, just $1.5. The Coca-Cola total equity, in essence, the net worth of the business, was $31 billion in 2010. 2018, equity had fallen to $19 billion. So over the past 8 years, Coca-Cola has lost nearly 40% of its equity. Sales are down, and per share earnings have fallen by 70%. Clearly, the company is in far worse shape today than it was at 8 years ago. Yet Coke's share price has nearly doubled in that period. To summarize, the families that own the Western and Japanese central banks are printing money and handling it to the corporations they also own, while sucking the lifeblood out of 9% of the population. The financial system has become a giant black hole, which makes perfect sense since many of the ruling families worship the black sun. One likely trigger would be the collapse of Deutsche Bank, which has announced a third-quarter loss of 832 million euros. This chart of their stock price bears an uncanny resemblance of Lehman Brothers just before they collapsed. A collapse of Deutsche Bank will pull down the European Central Bank and bankrupt the EU, the Asian sources say. Needless to say, while it's easy to spot a bubble, it's harder to predict when it will burst. However, Asian secret society and White Dragon Society sources believe a collapse is likely in 2020. This will be followed by a jubilee, a one-time write-out of all debt and redistribution of access, and a huge campaign to fix the planet. This plan includes setting up a meritocratic future-spanning agency that anybody can apply to join. Before that becomes possible, though, some serious battles remain to be fought. Right now, the main action is taking place in Saudi Arabia and Mexico, where the Khazarian mafia is fighting to preserve its oil and drug money pipelines. Let's start with the situation in Mexico, where according to Pentagon sources, US President Donald Trump has declared war on Mexican drug cartels, and indirectly the Democrats who are their secret supporters. However, Mexican sources say recent events in Mexico, such as the supposed murder of 9 American women and children, are just false flags. The evidence leads to Yonke, an extreme right secret occult stack portrayals of pedophilia, Mexican patriots say. The Mexican sources have put together a damning case showing that the recent attempt to arrest son of El Chapo in the supposed murder of the Americans were part of a desperate attempt by the U.S. corporation to survive by seizing northern Mexico and its oil fields. The Buran family that was supposed to be the victim of the slaughter of 9 women and children has been stealing water, kicking farmers off the land, smuggling drugs, and is involved in the NXI VM sex cult, among other things, the sources say. They note that the video of the massacre showed no bodies, no clothing, had no witnesses, and that the bullet-ridden survivors supposedly managed to walk 6 hours and 15 kilometers through hostile desert terrain and are all in Arizona, not Mexico. The sources also say the failed attempt to arrest the son of El Chapo was done by U.S. drug enforcement agencies in the government of Culiacan without informing the president of Mexico. The Cato had a reaction response comparable to that of a well-organized army. The sting of CIA operatives is all around, the sources say. With the excuse of these attacks, the U.S. Congress is going to label drug cartels as terrorist organizations, therefore opening the door, thanks to the Patriot Act, to wage war in Mexico. They conclude. A detailed report by Mexicans can be seen in a letter to the editor on the site. Now, let's turn our attention to the situation in Saudi Arabia, where the Khazarian mafia is fighting to preserve the petrodollar system by publicly listing Aramco, the Saudi oil company. Here, Iran's announcement of a new 53 billion barrel oil field would time to derail the Aramco IPO and should make it richer than Saudi Arabia, whose proven depleted reserves may be well below 200 billion barrels, Pentagon sources say. Until Saudi Arabia signs a non-aggression pact with Iran, a peace deal with Yemen, and has S-400 operation to protect its oil access, nobody will invest in Aramco, the sources continued. While China may pretend to be interested in Aramco to help Mohammed bin Salman, it may be forced to back down because Saudi human rights violations, war crimes, genocide, crimes against humanity, torture, mass murder, and terrorism, they conclude. Of course, the battle over Saudi Arabia is also about an attempt by Rockefellers and other capable families to use the oil to bribe the Chinese into going along with them. WDS sources say. That's why they handed $1,000 billion of Saudi money plus control of Japan's election-stealing machinery to SoftBank's son Masayoshi, a relative of Sun Yat-sen, founder of modern China, Asian secret society sources say. This would be a great historical justice for the destructions of Yugoslavia. In a sign, the U.S. military is on board with this plan, Pentagon sources say. Trump may attend Russia Victory Day military parade in May 2020 to send a message to the deep state, Zionists, in China. The Chinese, for their part, are now preparing to establish a $10 trillion a year Earth-Moon Space Economic Zone by 2015. There's a lot more going on under the surface that we cannot write about yet for reasons of operational security. However, we can say that more and more senior cable politicians are vanishing. The desperate cable operatives are trying to sustain the appearance that their pet politicians are still around with tweets, letters, press releases, and computer graphics. However, we hear they are being held in communique while facing vigorous questioning. Most are seen like canaries, Pentagon sources say. Once the cleanup US is finished, attention will turn to Europe and Japan, the White Dragon sources claim. Finally, in a sign the Israelis have backed up their Samson option threats, Israeli embassies have reopened for 25 days on the order of a judge, according to a spokesperson for the Israeli embassy in Tokyo. This may be an indication the Zionists are negotiating a surrender.